Hi, everyone. I'm Mark Nickerson, your host and your first selectman, your host of East Lyme Issues and Answers. We get together every couple of weeks or so and talk about what's going on in town, what's going on at the state level. We meet department heads, we meet people in our community that make a difference. And today is no different. With me today, we'll go right to the guest. The former host, the former person in this chair, and my predecessor, Senator Paul Formica. Welcome, Senator.
Thank you so much, sir.
I'm so happy that you picked up the phone today and answered my call and said, yeah, sure, I'll come down. It seemed appropriate. We're all starting to, now that it's past Labor Day, we're all talking about elections. We're thinking about what the future of Hartford's going to look like. And of course, there's the big race for the White House. But today we're going to talk about the race to Hartford and who's going to control Hartford and what's gone wrong, how it went wrong, and how we might be able to solve it for the future, because it's all about the future. We can't keep on looking back and blaming as much as we got to learn from all those mistakes and go forward and make improvements. So no better person to put in the seat than you. Again, welcome. We have a lot to talk about. I have no notes in front of me. You have a few. Talk to me about your first 2 years' experience up in Hartford. What did you learn?
So we're going to do all that. We're going to solve all those problems forward and back in, I think, the next 28 minutes. So sit tight. We'll do the best we can to do the best we can. But thanks very much, Mark. Thanks for the job you're doing in East Lyme, and it's it was a great honor for me to serve as first selectman, and 24 years or 23 years as an elected official in East Lyme, and now I can't believe that I'm finishing up my first term as the state senator from the 20th district. So it's amazing how things happen. When you opened a small business back in 1983, you never would think any of this is possible. And I think that's the lesson and that's the focus. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world, and we live in a great state. And all of this is financial and it's fixable. We just have to work on process. Yeah. I think we need to change a few people out. Some people have been there too long. Yeah. And I think the new philosophy. And I'll tell you right from the onset, when you have a 30-year one-party control, when you have 6 years of full control, both the House, the Senate, and the governor's office, there's an opportunity for disarray. And I would go so far as to say that it might be true if it were the other party that were in control.
I think that's a fair statement, and people who know you know that you're fair. They see you as not apolitical, because I think in the job you have to be, but fair and a gentleman and putting people's best intentions first. And I think you're one to do that. But yeah, we do have to focus on what's going on up there. Let's start with this. Listen, I'm a first selectman of a small town. I know about ordinances and how to run a government and balance a small $70 million budget. And certainly you did, and you did it quite well for 7 years, and we're all beneficiaries of that, myself most included. What's the difference between running a town and running a state, not running a state, but being involved with state government? What are the critical differences?
Well, the difference, if you're a business owner, if you're a head of household, if you're a first selectman, you set and control the daily agenda. You set and control the culture. You set and control, the opportunity to move forward in your own schedule. And I tell the story that when I first was elected, and in late '07, really the beginning of '08, one of the things that I saw on the horizon was instability in our financial markets. The Hartford, where we had all our pension funds, was teetering, asking for stimulus money. I knew it was a job bigger than one party, so I approached the Democratic Town Committee, and we had a conversation. I was told this by someone, that I was the first sitting first selectman in 26 years to go talk to the opposite party. And I did that because the problems that we have were bigger than the problems that Formica, the business owner, family man, could solve as a new first selectman. And we needed to work together. And so out of that, we formed a collaborative combination of ideas that came to the table where we, worked for the process to improve and to get the people's interest first, not the party.
Right.
And it worked in East Lyme, and it's still working in East Lyme, and it can work in Hartford if we do that. But it doesn't work in Hartford because that's not how it works. So I would go so far as to suggest, yeah, we need to change some people in Hartford, but I think we need to change control of one of the chambers.
At least one of the chambers.
I think one of the chambers. I think let's move to all of them if we can and give us a shot, but realistically, let's be realistic. If we controlled one of the chambers, the governor sits for 2 more years, and say we had control of the Senate or the House. I'm in the Senate. It'd be nice if we controlled the Senate, but either way, it puts our leaders in a spot at the table where now they're knocking on the door and they're only let in by the major party rule. And sometimes they were let in. Sometimes the governor said, yeah, come on in to Senator Fasano and Representative Claridis. But the president pro tem of the Senate and the Speaker of the House refused to attend the meetings. So there's all of that needs to be changed, and it can be changed with control of one chamber. And it's not like everything is going hunky-dory. We have some problems in this state. We have some fiscal problems in this state. The budget is certainly out of balance already. We had a $900 million deficit in last year's budget that we corrected mostly. We had it ended up with having to take the undesignated fund balance or the rainy day fund or the surplus dollars and putting that toward the budget, leaving those dollars now at the lowest point in, I don't know, modern day history.
Yeah,
certainly a long time. This year's budget that we're in, we had to take $900 million off that before we entered July 1, and we're already out of balance with that.
Right.
And those 2 budgets shifted the costs to everybody else except on the state. There were some cuts in state services, but hospitals got decimated with regard to the cost shift. Municipalities and education.
We sure felt
pilot funding.
Yeah.
That gets shifted. Businesses, taxpayer residents. All of those cost shifts occurred without really looking at the problem. The problem is that we need, as we do in small towns, make the tough decisions. Effective and efficient departments, combination of efforts. All of those things need to be done. A lot of them is controlled in the executive branch. So while I sit in the Senate, one of 36, I don't have the opportunity to control those. I don't have the opportunity to dissect the departments as such and say, yeah, Governor, you got to combine these 2, or you got to eliminate that agency, or you got to cross-train these people. That's the executive function. So in the Senate, there's 36 members of the Senate. There are 21 currently of the Democrats, and there are 15 Republicans.
Okay.
So the way it works in Hartford is the majority party controls the agenda. The majority party, in this case, both the House and the Senate, they provide the chairmans and women of all of the committees. So there's a House chair and a Senate chair. Now the minority party gets what they call a ranking member. The ranking member from the Senate and a ranking member from the House. And that's just a member of the party who has been designated or has volunteered because of their passion or interest in a particular committee to their leadership to be assigned to an opportunity to bring information back to the respective caucus, right? Okay. So, I make the joke that I'm the ranking member on energy, and I thought, geez, my first term, I'm a ranking member on energy, and I walked in and I was the only Republican senator on energy, so I kind of had to be the ranking member. But, that kidding aside, so that the chairmen control the agendas of the committees, and then they control the leadership in the Democratic Party control the agendas of what we vote on in both the Senate chamber and the House chamber. So that process needs to be fixed. I put a bill in this year that would provide for a 3-day notice of any bills that's going to get voted on in the Senate or the House. That was not considered. Now what happens is that the president of the Senate and the majority leader of the Senate, whose job is really the operation of the day, the agenda, the bringing forth. Right. The chairman bring the bills out. So I'm ranking on energy. Chairman Doyle, who's the senator, Chairman Reed in the House. If there's an energy bill, they stand up and introduce it. And then it's my job to stand up and say, we support it, we don't support it, right. We think it may be a good bill with this amendment. Right. And then we have debate. The problem with the process, if I can just finish the thought, the problem with the process is now we get a list of bills in the morning. Let's just say there's a Senate session scheduled at 1 in the afternoon. We get a list of bills that could be called that day, maybe 50, for the first time.
So hundreds of pages long each.
I mean, there are a number of, some are short, some are long, right? And so we have from that point in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning, to the time we're called in to review. So how does it work? We have a caucus room on one side of the chamber. The Democrats have a caucus room on the other side of the chamber. So we get those bills, and around the table we sit, and there are ranking members in our group of all of the committees. So if there's an energy bill, the leader will say, okay, Formica, there's 3 energy bills potentially to come up. Give the caucus a background on what's going on. Okay. And you do the same, good bill, bad bill. Let's make an amendment. And sometimes that's the only opportunity for people outside the Energy Committee to hear about those bills, other than discussion. So we bring our laptops, and while the chamber is open and there's discussion, we're looking and reading. So it's a fast process. In your town, in East Lyme, and in towns and cities across the state, when you post an agenda, you have to post it 24 hours in advance. Right. You have to give the opportunity for people to know what's on the agenda and prepare, both for the people sitting and the people viewing. And that's a big difference that I think needs to be changed.
Other states do it that way too. They put notices up, 3-day notice. Your proposed bill. It's not a unique one. It happens in other states, and you're trying to improve the process here in Connecticut.
Yeah. In Rhode Island, I believe you have to have the budget has to be public and in the hands of every legislator. I think it's either 3 or 7 days ahead of the time, right. And I'm not sure which, but it allows the opportunity. We get it the last minute. 600, the first year we didn't finish our business during the year, so we had to have a special session. The implementer bill, which implements the budget, was given to us on a Sunday afternoon for a Monday noontime chamber meet. 600 pages we had to read overnight. This past year, same thing, 300 pages. So how can you be effective?
Yeah, it's not effective government.
So we need to change a part of the process, and we need to be collaborative in that we need to bring people up there that are willing and able to talk to each other and have the respect of both sides, to disagree without being disagreeable, and that's what's important, I think, first and foremost. The rest of the stuff are just problems around the table. You bring your idea, I bring my idea. Where's the solution? It's in the middle.
Yeah, but with one-party rule, there's really one party sitting at the table.
That's exactly
right. And that's what I found fascinating and disturbing at the same time. Yeah. That we're represented by all, by everyone that we put up there. Yet not half, but one party is not locked out, but not part of the discussion of the process. And again, disturbing. If we're locking out those good ideas, those good bills. You mentioned that if a Republican at this day and age with Democrat control, a Republican has a bill, it doesn't get heard.
Well, what happens is this. Sure, no, the bills get heard. We can bring bills forward. Okay. We have to, in committee, say go back to the Energy Committee. So I maybe jumped the gun, but the first half of the session is dealt in committee. So I'm on the Energy Committee, Public Safety and Appropriations, which is the expenditure side of the budget. So when the session is in, the committees act, and the bills come out of committee. Individual legislators can propose a bill in the long session the first year. Committees only can propose a bill in the short session the second year. Right. Those committees determine what bills are discussed. If they get a public hearing, that's determined by the leadership of the committee, and it needs a public hearing to get out of the committee by majority vote and get into vote at one of the chambers, the House or the Senate. So we can get a bill in. The issue that I think has occurred, and you'll hear people on the Democrat side say that, well, Republicans don't know what they're talking about. We agree 85% of the time. And we do agree a lot. Yeah. There are a lot of bills that are important yet not
common
fiscal
sense. It makes sense.
that we agree on, and that's why we have a consent calendar, and that's what we do on. But what has happened is that those amendments that I talked about, it's been, I believe, 5 years since a Republican amendment passed the Senate.
That's what I was
They were introduced, so we get up and introduce an amendment. Sometimes it's a word change, a sentence change, a paragraph change. Sometimes it's a complete bill change. But not one time has that passed. And I know there's got to be one good idea amongst us over the last 5 years. So, so that's an opportunity that I think changes with conversation.
Yes.
It changes when we get together as a group of leaders to not only discuss issues, but to learn about each other. I often say, and I happen to serve with his son, but Ted Kennedy Sr. was probably the most liberal of all United States senators, modern time, yet the most prolific in bringing bills to the floor and getting bills passed. Why? He didn't move everybody from the hard right over to his side. But you know what? He fought like crazy during the day. And at the end of the day, he said, you know what do you think about go having a beer?
Right.
Or let's have a hamburger.
Right.
Or let's meet for breakfast. How's your family today? And that is what's missing in today's politics.
Sure seems that way.
And we need to get back to that if we're going to solve problems that are significant in the state.
It seemed, thanks for the inside baseball conversation, because it is fascinating, and I think the average citizen doesn't understand how it works up there. And in conversations with you, as we had many hamburgers together over the years, and it's fascinating to know that this is really a power thing and a power. I don't want to call it a power struggle. It's a power grab that the Democrats who are in leadership now will do anything to keep, and we all would, and that's how politics is. But it brings to a point that if I heard a Democrat candidate the other day say, well, I'm not going to vote party line. I'm going to vote my own conscience. And it's really not about that. It's really about how many Democrats get voted versus how many Republicans get voted, therefore forming the leaderships of these committees in the House and the Senate itself. So we really need to be mindful as citizens in this state that we're in, pun intended, that in order to change Hartford, we need to change the people up there, and therefore the leadership eventually.
We have to give the opportunity for both sides to have conversation, and that's not happening sometime.
I hear in press conferences all the time talking about we're going to all come together and there's going to be a kumbaya moment, and we're all sit around the campfire and talk. Like you mentioned, the governor had the Republican leadership in, but of course the Democrats didn't show up to that conversation. It's more than that, though. It really does need to be changed up there, that whole temperament.
Well, and that's the only way anything works. Listen, you don't give up your principles, you don't give up your values, but you give an opportunity for discussion, and somewhere in the middle is a good solution. And
somewhere in the middle.
And that's what's missing. And now, now here we are in a campaign season, and we're moving forward. There's 45, 50 days left, whatever it is, right?
Right.
So the question I think we need to ask is, how are the people that are there? How did they vote? And what did they vote for? And what did they do? And that's the question. Not what they're saying in press conferences or in campaign literature, but how did they vote? And what are they going? Now, when I got up there as first selectman, we had 7 balanced budgets with surpluses. So I asked to be on the Appropriation Committee. Appropriation Committee is the expenditure side of the budget. There's another committee, it's Finance and Revenue, is the revenue side of the budget. So you'll get a kick out of this, Mark. Unlike cities and towns where the mayor or first selectman or the city council put the budget together and then the Finance Commission or committee look at the revenues, then they say, well, all right, here are the expenditures. Last year, this year, next year, need a fire truck, need a building, whatever it is. Here are the expenditures. Right. Are they above the revenues or below the revenues?
Right.
If they're above the revenues, what do we think we say to the townspeople? Is it worth raising taxes a little bit to pay for it, or do we cut? And that's all done in one committee, and they balance it.
Right.
Well, in Hartford, you have the revenue, one committee, the expenditures, another committee. And as I said, I'm on the appropriations committee. 2 years, never once have we publicly met together to discuss revenues and expenditures. Never once. So I wrote a letter in May to the leaders of both committees, and I said, I was a first selectman, I'm a business owner, I'm a family man. We, in small towns, get the revenues and the expenditures, and we balance and work together to get those done. Mm-hmm. Up here, it's clearly a different process. So my suggestion is, let's form a committee, 4, 6, 8, whatever you want from either side, mm-hmm. that meet weekly, monthly, and exchange information between the committees. I wrote that letter in April. It's September, almost October. I've not received the letter. I've not received the response. So what we're doing now is, what are you doing as a minority party? What are you going to do? It's easy to throw rocks, but it's better to throw solutions. So we have, as a Republican majority, put out this blueprint, which we're calling A Confident Future, which is the Senate Republican legislative agenda for the next session. And it will be online. People want to look at it. It calls for simple things, financial stability and predictability, providing for families an opportunity, and restoring our trust in government. And there are a laundry list of things that we think we should do, starting with the spending cap, which was voted on by the citizens of the state of Connecticut back in 1992 or 3, after the income tax was implemented, mm-hmm. and it was put forth on the statewide ballot as a result of the income tax to control. Right. But yet it was never statutorily implemented. The formula was never defined. So we need to define that.
Yeah, indeed.
We borrowed, this governor has put forth $2.5 billion of bonding money this year. We need to bring that down, mm-hmm. because you still, it's like buying a car. I'd like to buy a nice Jaguar, but I know I got to pay the principal and the interest every month, right? Got to make the payment. So, one of my favorite stories is my cousin bought a car. He came back one time and his license plate said IF, and I said, "What's that?" I am trying to think, what Formica is he talking about? And he said, no, if I can make the payments. So that's what we got to think about up at the state level, and we have to make sure we do it. Another practice that happens up there, and you and I, as members of the Board of Selectmen, as first selectmen, mm-hmm. we took the finance bonds, the debt that we had, we took the bonds, and they were at a higher interest rate. We would refund them at a lower interest mm-hmm. rate, and we either cut some time off, some years off, or we save some interest rates and move forward. Right. Up there, what they do is they actually sell them for a higher interest rate. And they get what they call a bond premium, which is a cash payment from the purchasers of those bonds. And they take that bond premium in cash and they put it in the general fund as a revenue. So 2 things happen. You pay higher interest long term, more money that you're obligated to in the future. And 2, you're creating a hole in the budget today because, let's say it's, $50 million that they get to put in the budget, right? You put that in the budget. Well, next year, in order to be even, you got to find that $50 million. It's not a sustainable revenue source. And so that's a practice that in here we call for the elimination of. We call for really more effective and efficient budget.
That's called the Confident
Future. A Confident Future.
Confident Future. Is that online now?
It is online. Yep, it's on.
How do we find that?
It's on the Senate Republicans. I believe it's on my website, senatorformica.com.
Senatorformica.com.
You can go to that.
Okay. Connecticut
it may be on my campaign.
We'll look for that.
We'll look for that. Those are the kind of things that we put forth that we'd like to, just be part of the conversation. Are these all the answers? Are these all correct? Maybe not. No, but this is a conversation starter.
Right.
This is an opportunity to talk about how we move forward, when we move forward, and that's kind of what we have.
It's the topic that it's on everybody's mind is where's the state headed? Where's our budget headed? As a first selectman, it was probably the only thing I really worry about is what's the state going to do to the funding that we're owed. we're owed money, ECS funding and pilot money, and what's that going to do to my town's future and future tax increases and all that. So it's very important. It's top of mind. I have confidence that we have people like Senator Formica up in Hartford representing us. We didn't want to go too negative, and it isn't. We're in a good place. And you know what? When the pendulum swings this way, it always swings back. And we're not in an apocalyptic moment. This is an opportunity for change.
Look, in every problem are the seeds of opportunity. And that's what we have to take this as. We can't take this as, politically you're wrong, politically I'm right.
Right.
The problem is wrong. Bitter job news for Connecticut. How many more headlines do we want to see of this?
Right.
Whether you're a Republican-controlled or Democrat-controlled, the people of our state do not deserve these front-page headlines. We deserve to feel positive about our state.
Right.
And by that end, come up to the Capitol and walk around. It is a stunning place. Mm-hmm. It's full of history and tradition. If you don't walk out of there, taking a tour by the League of Women Voters, feeling better about yourself, that's what we need. Let's keep our head high. Let's work hard for our state. Right. Let's move forward with people that can confidently speak to each other. Right. Again, agree to disagree, put down the party platforms when the election is over, and do what's best for the people of the state of Connecticut, just like mayors and first selectmen do in every city and every town throughout our state, just like business owners do, family leaders do. So there are plenty of ideas to go around. We can talk about those. Some good stuff happening in New London, a new Solar for All kickoff this morning in New London. Reduce energy opportunities. That's the big push that I will be on.
Plenty of opportunities out there. Paul, we got to go.
We do. Okay.
You've been my guest. You've been a great guest. Thanks for coming. I'm so happy to have you. We're looking forward to supporting you in November and show a positive future in Connecticut. Paul Formica has been my guest. Thank you again. My name is Mark Nickerson. We're signing off. This is Issues and Answers in East Lyme.